Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, the Crypto Hipster, Jamil Hassan, who I interview founders, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, executives, musicians, artists all around the world in crypto and blockchain. And today I have an amazing guest coming to you from Vietnam. He is the founder of Mirai Labs. His name is Corey Wilton. Corey, welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jamal, for having me.
Welcome. You're welcome. So, first question. What is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
My background is definitely not logical for where I'm going now. So it's a pretty interesting path, I would say. Begun not going to university and just decided to pursue my own thing, I guess. So natural progression into very, very small businesses and failing many times over. And finally, we hit some success in e-commerce in Australia. We have Australia's largest toy gun store. And that was just a natural progression through a lot of failures. And those companies still exist now. And I dabbled in a bit of crypto back then as well, started a crypto support company. And obviously, I liked games, played a lot when I was younger. So on the crypto side of things, that was before the gun store, and then we did the gun store, and then I came back into crypto just as someone who was interested in it. I guess came over to lose some money, and started playing some of the crypto games, the very early crypto games, and one thing led to another, and met my co-founder who's actually Vietnamese, and that's what led us into here. He decided to ask me if we wanted to build a game, and I was like, no, because I can't see myself building a game. But here we are, about 2 years later, and we shipped a very basic game, and we're building 3 more at the moment.
Awesome. So, Mirai Labs, right? What is it all about? What makes it unique? And let us know.
Sure. So Mirai Labs, most people would know us as our first game, Pexagy, which was quite popular in 2021, early 2022. During the first bull run of NFT games, we were very blessed to have gotten in early. So I think we ranked second in 2022 for users in the Philippines, which was above like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which was I shouldn't say users, popularity on like coin market cap and CoinGecko, I should say. So definitely had a lot of users out of the Philippines and Brazil as well. So we caught a very good trend back there, and quite quickly, and one of our very early games. However, that soon shifted, as you know. I don't really need to explain what happened to the market back then. And as a studio, I guess our original thesis here was to build games anyway. So that's what we just continue to do. And right now we're in a unique position, I guess, where you would say we're building with the traditional game thesis, and the blockchain side, the crypto side is layered on top to some degree. I'm not sure the best way to explain it because it's not live yet, and that's going to adapt as we go on. But in short, yeah, I would call this a bit of a hybrid studio at this point.
So, with the hybrid studio, um, let's see. I want to talk about one of your games, Pexagy, right? It's actually one of the top games in the Asian market. Like, what is this game, and why is it so popular?
Yeah, so Pegasi was the first game that we did release. It was in beta, and that one was a very simple 2D horse racing game. And what got popular was, of course, the mechanics of it, not so much the idea of the gameplay itself. I guess the gameplay here enabled uh, a lack of skill, which is something that's attractive to a lot of people. You don't need skill to have the potential to win. It was randomness, which people were attracted to. So it came down to getting lucky at some point, and there was no cost to play. It was a free to play game, and people were just interested in watching the race and trying to earn some tokens. And that's the simple theory that we had back then. Of course, it like I said, it didn't really work out, but that wasn't I guess the end goal. That was still the alpha. So once we sunset that one, we're moving to, I guess, where we are now, which is a free to play mobile skill based game, and that one's due to ship just in a couple of months. And it's, I guess you would call it a beta. Yeah.
Is it a play to earn game?
So no, the original version is definitely what you would call the play to earn mechanism, but this future version is, consider it just a typical racing game similar to Mario Kart, with blockchain elements being ownership of the assets and the ability to transfer back and forth through the blockchain, but not play to earn, nothing like that anymore.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about GameFi in general then. So the GameFi space is a very it's a very crowded market, right? How does one build their niche today within that crowded space?
Good question. Yeah, I would say, comparative to the traditional space, it's not that crowded, but also I guess the market isn't as big either. So I guess we've got to look at it as a relative to the market size here. So in market size, I would say generally it's going to be considered crowded. Now, when someone was looking from the outside in or wanting to come in, easiest thing that I would recommend to them is say, don't look at the past as what to do, more so what not to do. And there's a lot of lessons there, and lessons come in, of course, two types, like I just mentioned. And I would be looking at ways to innovate and change and explore if you're going to jump into this industry, over copying what. Obviously, for our studio, we made money doing what happened previously, but it's our thesis and most people's thesis that doesn't exist anymore. And obviously, we're trying to innovate in different areas, and I would recommend them to do the same. I'm not too sure where it is because it depends on the genre of their game, if they're mobile, if they're console or something like that, or web. However, there's a lot of areas for them to innovate, and I think they should explore that instead of looking at the past for what to do. Just don't do the same mistakes we did. That's the easiest way to put it.
Okay. Well, you got a whole bunch of kids in the Philippines making millions of dollars a year playing games, right? And this morning in the US you had bank failures. What do people here need to know about what the industry, other than just like, hearing about Bitcoin, what the industry has to offer to them if they get involved?
I would say definitely don't come here for the games for money. That's for sure. Like the vast majority of this is, if you do see the ability to make money, and it's in the existing games at the moment, it's purely going to be based on speculation, and the person who knows how to play the game best is obviously going to win. And that's the market most people are attracted to. But this is, again, peer to peer, so understanding the game is going to be the best way for you to win. But again, it depends. It depends on how good you are. I guess for the people in the Philippines, yeah, we could consider them making a lot of money. But for the people in the Western world, I wouldn't say that it's going to be that much money. And we're also not in the era of play to earn anymore. So I would say it's going to take capital upfront for you to dive into something that has the potential to make money based on speculation. So I would say more warning signs than anything. If you do see something that talks about earning money at this stage, obviously 2 years ago we were a bit ignorant to the fact of what could happen or how these systems do work. But now that we're here, we can definitely put our hand up and say that we were wrong. That's for sure. So for the people who want to get into it, I would just say like the game first. That's probably the best thing to look out for. Like the game, and then you won't worry about the other stuff. It'll just be a benefit.
That's great advice. I used to love it playing adventure games, like sort of Vermilion and Deadly Towers and all that stuff, dating myself now, but um, crypto gaming and gaming altogether had changed since COVID began. Before COVID, you had these massive sellouts at stadiums, and then you had on Zoom. And now, what does it look like? And then what is it going to look like in the medium and long term too?
For crypto in general, right?
For gaming.
For gaming. I mean, for our personal industry, I think it's going through like a maturity stage. I feel very, very early on what we had was something like the honeymoon stage. And it gets very, very popular and everybody loves it and it's very easy and things are great. But then you get into a maturity point, and that's where we are now. And it's similar to what happened to DeFi, right? DeFi went through a great period where everything was cool, and a simple DEX was revolutionary. Now there's thousands of them, and they're considered the norm. And some of the crazy features that DEXs had 3 years ago, every single DEX has now. Similar situation to what we have in I would call it blockchain gaming, Web3 gaming. Um, a lot of the things that were cool 2 years ago, the reality is it's either standard or we already know it doesn't work at this point. So I would say in the future, hopefully, we're going to see a lot more proper innovation from people who have a lot more experience than even myself in the gaming industry to come in and give us some mature developments and not stupid developments in or ignorant developments, I guess you could say. And I would say you also probably won't see another bull run similar to what we had experienced in 2021 slash early 2022 for gaming. That maturity point, yes, we may see the same level flow of money when things get popular, but it won't be I feel anyway, it won't be a hype cycle where there's a heap of attention. It'll just feel natural and people know about it. So the money will come flowing, but we won't have that aha moment again, I believe.
It's interesting you say maturity because I see a lot of immaturity in our government here in the U.S. But I wanted to find out what that regulatory environment and your economic environment is where you are in Southeast Asia. If you see if it's that open ocean, blue ocean, or what some of the challenges are there.
Yeah, great question. I think Southeast Asia is a interesting one because so many of the countries are different to each other. Like Vietnam is very behind on legislation, I would say, regarding blockchain or crypto in general. It's very, very difficult for them to operate, uh, how would I say, like a DeFi company, very difficult for them to operate over here. Whereas in the Philippines, I guess they're leaning towards having legislation and things are a bit more clear. They're not grey as they are in Vietnam. And then when you go to Singapore, very simple. You speak to one of the top blockchain lawyers, they'll tell you what to do, and then you're going. So I guess you'll find in many scenarios that most companies will be incorporated in a place like Singapore because it stops any potential problems for someone like us or a DeFi company and being able to raise like institutional investors, being able to raise from them. You need to be in a place like Singapore that has defined laws. Possibly Philippines, I'm not too sure, but Vietnam is just not welcoming for something like that at the moment. So you're in all different stages, but I guess you're very lucky that most of these countries are quite close and flexible in general, whereas US is on a stark contrast. Things are very clear, but not clear in a good way, and I guess not clear at the same time, which is difficult for you guys, that's for sure.
Yeah, but if Vietnam's not clear, like why are you there?
This is where the talent is. That's just the reality for Southeast Asia. The game developer talent is here, and primarily it comes back to being a game studio. So we can definitely function as a game studio here. However, and which is where all of our staff are. We do have a couple work from home in Philippines as well, but our studios are here, all of our staff here, and then jurisdiction wise, we will always the laws of Singapore because we know they're well defined. So no matter where we are, we will stick within them because we know that's the best, I guess, the path to follow because they've defined something at least.
Great. So, what do you think needs to happen in the broader market for where you're at now for the gaming, to be sustainable and for companies to build on it? What needs to happen in the broader sense and broader market that isn't there today?
I guess opportunities like we just saw in 2021, 2022 for a studio like us is what I would say creates a new generation. And they had a similar one in Vietnam in 2015. If you're familiar with a game called Flappy Bird, it went very, very popular around the world. And that sparked a new generation of developers in Vietnam. And I would consider this the second one. So I think more people being involved in an industry, and that means more customers and more consumers, comes from more generations of builders. And I would just consider a place like Vietnam, where I would say 80% of the game studios through the recent bull run were located. That's the second generation. And we may be 3, 4, 5 years away from the third one. But at that point, the third one, I would consider there to be a lot of potential here to start pushing some very large scale global games. And that's the point that we would start seeing the real inflection point of somehow mainstream games with blockchain inside of them, whether it's visible or invisible, existing. But I don't see it in the next 12 months, I would say. Yeah.
Wait, so let's do the roadmap there because I'm not too familiar with the first generation through the third. So can you walk me through that first, what the first generation looked like, what the second one looked like, and what the third should look like?
So that first one, the easiest way to put this was the generation is, I guess, where people see opportunity and are inspired by something. And in I think it was around 2015, what happened is that someone built a very basic game and it blew up globally, and then that inspired a lot of startup developers and artists and stuff in Vietnam to not build copycats, but just realize that it is possible. And these are the ones who now, when this second cycle for crypto began, this cycle for crypto began, it started the second generation to where those guys who were junior developers in 2015 are now becoming senior and are able to take advantage of a trend when they see one, which is started the second generation. Those guys are now founders and senior members in larger studios who were training the new people who were just inspired by in this second generation. And what I see happening there is that in 5 years' time, those guys who were seniors in the second generation are definitely going on to either international studios or founding their own studios, which again, in turn, creates more potential for more people to join as juniors in that third generation. Plus, you've got far more seniors in that third generation as well. So I just see it as more so the easiest way to put this is like a compounding effect, but unfortunately, it's not short. And I see with so much developer talent in Vietnam or Southeast Asia in general that probably around that third generation is when we'll start to see mainstream blockchain inside of games, personally.
And okay, so thank you. I understand that. And then what I don't understand yet is you said you're moving away from play to earn to a regular game. Play to earn has had its evolution over time, and now recently there have been other games like the massive, like MMO, right? I'm not saying that right. The massively whatever games. Maybe you can explain that to me, please. What has been the style of game that has evolved, and what do you see in the future?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I guess when I say we're moving away, I would say just from the general model that existed and was popular back then, but our belief system in ownership within the games it still exists now. When we talk about like MMORPGs, that's what you were discussing there, like a massively multiplayer online game where everybody plays together, and the game design is very, very deep. So you have to play many, 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 many hours just to level up or own an item, that's where ownership makes a lot of sense. And we would call them in the industry like hardcore games, where people play a lot and put a lot of hours in. So they value their items really highly. There's different studios who build, there's something called like hyper casual, which people don't play very often or for a very long time. Then you've got casual, mid-core, and then it goes up to like hardcore. Personally, our studio is a casual to mid-core studio on mobile. And what you find is they just play a little bit less. They still like to spend money and there's a lot of money to be made, but they just play less. So their attachment to items within a game just isn't as high as it would be if you invested 500 hours into playing a game over the last 2 years. So we need to treat those NFTs, in-game assets, a different way and provide benefits a different way to the users. Whereas it's likely that that original thesis of play to earn or ownership in general will exist, but these MMORPG games take 4 years to build type situation. So this industry, I guess you could call it, only happened about 2 years ago, and these guys definitely haven't completed building their games. So that's probably the easiest way for me to put it. For us in the short term, because we're able to build games quicker and our game design isn't as deep and our users wouldn't be as attached to those assets as a bigger game, we need to treat them differently. So maybe they would like to trade it peer to peer, or maybe they would just love to know that they own it in a wallet, or maybe there's something else. I'm not too sure. It might be on the back end. But for these really, really, really big games that take a lot of time and a lot of money, their application of blockchain would definitely be different to ours.
Got it. Okay. So you're building your like I say medium term games. They're building these longer term games. The crypto industry, as you know, has tremendous velocity and things change very rapidly, right? How do you keep up to speed on all the rapid advancements so that you can incorporate them into what you're building and maybe have an advantage versus the longer term games who might be outdated by the time their game is complete?
You hit the nail on the head there. That was just the way we looked at it, if I'm honest with you. Those very big games usually are filled with industry veterans, but because they generally will stick to their guns so long and they know how to acquire users independent of what is happening. Like when Harry Potter came out, they've obviously been building that game for many, many years, and current technology of how you would build a game is far advanced to what they had used then. But it still blew up and it still went crazy. For us, because we're a small studio comparative to most, we have about 90 staff members. We're able to pivot a bit more quickly, but also the reality is we just don't have as much money. So if we see an opportunity, we need to be able to seize it. And if we've committed to a game development of 4 years and our runway all of a sudden for some reason is 3 years, we can't even ship the game to try to make money. So as a studio, especially a startup studio, we need time in the trenches. And for us, the more games that we ship, we know that games are going to have a shelf life, but the more games that we ship, the more time we have in the trenches, the better we can be. Whereas these guys are taking very, very large risk, which sure, it may work for them and it may fail for us. That's just the way life goes, but we just felt it was a survival rate percentage, it was a better chance for us. Yeah.
And you hit the nail on the head too. And you said trenches. You know, a lot of people have a take, right? It's a take, an opinion, right, of what's going on, but they never ever been in the trenches, right? They never did that grunt work, right? So what's the benefit of like actually being in the trenches and doing the grunt work, and how have you taken your experience doing that so that you can apply it to the game and build a future for your company and the industry?
Yeah, I think that's just where we've been so blessed, right? When in 2021 we had $200 million go through the platform, peer to peer, 500,000 players. We just got a lot of data and we got to see what people do, what people's motives are, what a small change do to a game like that, and what having an open economy can do to a game that you're meant to have full control over. We learned a lot, and this is just something for sure I can tell people, but they just do not feel the weight and probably take the same action we would, because we really felt that weight, and understand what it means. So I think this is just, this is why older people have a higher success rate, I would say, on average, than a young person like myself, because you simply have time in the trenches, you have time alive. That's why people laugh at life coaches who are 23 years old. It doesn't make sense. It's impossible for you to tell me how to live a life when you have barely experienced a third of mine, for example. So yeah, this is just the way I personally do look at it. And for those guys who haven't had time in the trenches, I hope that they're looking to speak to people who have had time in the trenches, because they can obviously offer some form of advice, at least of what not to do. Yeah.
You don't want me to get into life coaches? Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you haven't experienced pain, then how do you coach somebody on overcoming pain, right? Um,
Correct.
from what I understand, is a lot of the gamers in crypto and blockchain have experienced pain, right? They've been rugged just like
Yep.
people in DeFi, right? What
Yep.
coaching and advice can you give them to have them feel comfortable with being in the gaming fi sector, and what assurances can you give them, and advice?
Yeah. That's a tough one. I think it's very very important for anyone who's in the space right now, whether they're a studio or just a player, to know that they're playing in an industry that is very new. They may have been there since 2021 or even 2020 when it was super super new, but the reality is 3 years is nothing. Uh, Time in the trenches is hard years in the trenches. And unfortunately, you can't fake it. You may feel that a lot of ups and downs in a short period of time weathers you, but unfortunately, the only thing that really does it is time. So for those guys, I would just, even if you feel like an old man in the industry, you still have to, I guess, feel like a student. You have to work like a student and act like a student, and be ready to ingest information. And that was really a big pivot for our studio personally, to where it was when we were at on top of the world. We were making so much money. We thought we had done it, and we had to take a sit down and be like, is this real? Did we earn this? Was luck involved? What is happening right now? And the reality just came down to that we did a lot of great things, but timing is a factor here, and we can't have an ego or assume that we can repeat this success overnight. We need to make sure that we're ingesting all of the information and all of the lessons that we're having right now. And it's a similar situation for everyone that is out there right now. It's definitely going to be far more difficult to start up than it was for us, because you don't have the right time. But you're fortunate enough to also be able to speak to someone like us. Whereas for us, when we started, there was not even a single page blueprint, unfortunately. So, yeah, I guess it's just a different situation.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. My kids are my one child. My one kid is 13 now, and I wish I had a blueprint for the teenage years, but I don't. You know, so it's learn
Yep.
as you go. You know,
Yep.
um, so I want to talk about successes, right? Because I want people all over the world to be successful in GameFi. So do you. Um, what should we be learning in the Western world that you guys already know in the Eastern world, so that we can be successful and sustainable in gaming?
Uh, this is a tough one. This is definitely a tough one, but the one thing that stands out to me all the time when I'm looking at, I guess, the Western world studios is their burn rate. They are salaries and overheads are truly crazy, and I understand that it's a different country for sure, but the money still has the same value globally, I guess. And $1,000 is $1,000. $1 million is still $1 million. You should be more wise with those funds. I'm definitely not perfect, that's for sure. But some of the money that these guys are spending is in a year is truly obnoxious. And some of them haven't even shipped a product yet, which is insane. So that's probably for other studios in the Western waters, I would say, become far more scrappy, far more just get more for your dollar. That's the easiest way I'm going to put it, because I just don't see you hiring someone for $500,000 a year and being able to do what more better than we can do. If we had $500,000 in salary in Southeast Asia, you're simply not going to be able to compete on output. So yeah, I would look at that personally. Yeah.
If I had $500 in Vietnam, I'd be a millionaire. You know, and so one of my final question. I have two final questions. Before I get to the final question, I backpacked from Hanoi to Singapore for 3 weeks in 2004, and I love the country. And I just want to find out what you love the most about Vietnam.
Ooh, great question. I think the thing that I love most and the reason I come here is honestly our team. I just want to be with them as much as possible. I want to spend time with them. My favorite place here is called Da Nang, and it's a beach city, and I guess it's a very small Singapore. It's not as modern, definitely not, but it's on the beach, and it reminds me of my hometown in Australia, the Gold Coast. So that's definitely my favorite city here. But honestly, the reason we live here as long as possible, we can't live here full time, but the reason we come here is genuinely so I can spend as much time with our team, and I definitely wouldn't be changing that.
Awesome, awesome. I liked Hoi An. I was able to ride the bike and go buy a suit, and the food was great. So,
Hey,
you know, um, so I want to thank you very, very, very much for your time today. This has been a splendid conversation. I enjoyed it very much. And my final question for you today is this: how can people find out more information about you, about your studio, about what you do? How can they do any of that?
yeah, I would say I'm not the most interesting guy in the world. Like you probably, if you're building a game studio or you're interested in games, maybe the studio is more interesting. So it's just Mirai Labs, Mirai Labs.co, and then my name is just like at Corey Wilton everywhere on socials. So that's about it. Yeah.
Very much for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.